Hello and welcome to another BES in Conversation. I'm delighted to introduce Sarah, Michelle and Claire to tell us about how they each found the time to reach out to others over the last few months. Sarah, if I can start with you, please tell us about how, as a busy mum and a GP, you came up with the idea to start a Corona Creativity Instagram page.
So I had the privilege of being on maternity leave, and I had a bit of extra time on my hands, and I just was having a conversation with relatives. My sister-in-law just sort of encouraged me gently to set up a little Instagram page just for parents who might be looking for a bit of inspiration to fill their day with a bit of creativity, arts and crafts, anything that you have in your home. And so I did. We always share our creative ideas together, and we bounce off each other, and it was just a nice way to share for those who were interested, really.
I know I'm completely not artistic. Have you always been creative and artistic as a child, or?
No, not at all. It's not particularly artsy, to be honest. It's not particularly glamorous or anything like that. It's very kid friendly, and I don't claim to do the work myself. It's whatever they enjoy, even if it's a flat of paint or something, and quick things, nothing complex. So there's lots of ideas out there, and it's almost overwhelming to pinpoint what you want to do for 20 minutes or half an hour. So it's just a very light-hearted Insta page to share ideas.
How did you get it out to people?
I just put it on some local WhatsApp groups. I put it on my Facebook page, and that was it, really. If I haven't, it's not gone huge, but it's for whoever's interested. People tell their friends, "Oh, I saw this on this page," and they've,
I know the Jewish Chronicle got wind of it.
One of my followers is writes for the JC, so yeah, it was very, very humbling to be contacted.
And when are you looking to go back to work?
In about a week.
Oh, so, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So the timings worked out well. I'm very mindful that a lot of parents don't have a lot of time. They're juggling children and work, and I had the privilege of having all the time for my kids, and I was very mindful of that. So I wasn't sort of, pushing myself out there in a way. It's just whoever's interested, and finds pleasure in doing that with their children. Not everybody's interested in arts and crafts. So yeah.
Oh, it's lovely. And then, I saw some of the feedback on Facebook and Instagram. You see people talking about things, and as you say, it's really simple ideas and things you have around the house. I like that whatever you have type of mentality. I'm not. Yeah. People couldn't go to shops, so it's that also, or didn't want to go to shops. And I'm the sort who, I don't think I ever had paint in my house when my kids were younger, but there are other things that you could find and be creative with, and it's really really lovely idea. And I think you might want to have your mind back on going to work, but apparently not.
You know what? It's a very easy outlet for me. My kids have always loved arts and crafts. I think I started from a very young age with them, and it's an outlet. It's something different to medicine. It's completely different. And I feel that I bond with my kids through that. My husband's not interested at all. He has different ways to bond with the children, but that's something that I enjoy spending time doing with them, and I really see them develop, their creativity and their sense of independence, and they're quite proud of their work, even if it looks like a scribble or a splat of paint. So yeah, I think everyone, apart from the mess afterwards, everyone gets a bit of joy out of it. And I do it with my nieces and nephews, not now obviously, but whoever wants to join in, I just enjoy it.
What sort of ages do you think it's good for?
I'd say sort of 2+.
Oh, that's lovely. That's great. Your kids have enjoyed it and spending that time, definitely. You've all been home anyway, so it's nice, as you say, you've got those things that you do, and your husband's got his things that he does with the kids. Really nice. Thank you, Sarah. Right. Thank you. Now on to Michelle. You approached all this from quite a different angle. Do you want to explain to us how it all got started?
Yeah, sure. So I was unwell at the beginning of March, and pretty sure without a test, because the tests weren't out then, that I had COVID. And at the time, my husband, who is a consultant in geriatrics and a stroke physician at Barnet Hospital, um, was just starting to see the influx of patients, and COVID was starting to be being mentioned. And suddenly we were in full thrust. I wasn't working because I was still unwell. My husband was coming home from work, basically describing a war zone. And we were chatting, and I was asking him, what's going on with PPE, which everyone now knows about, but protective gear. Was he equipped? And he was fine on that side of things. Everything was great. And I said, well, what about relatives coming in to see their sick relatives in hospital? And he just went very quiet and said, it's not happening. We can't let anyone in because everyone is a risk. Everyone's at risk. We could be bringing it in, they could be taking it out. And I said, but how are they communicating? How are you able to speak to the relatives? How are the relatives able to speak to anybody else? And he said, they're not. And it's heartbreaking. And I said, well, I can't sit here as a speech and language therapist where my specialty is helping people communicate. I can't do that. I can't sit here knowing that that's happening and not do something about it. So I had joined a couple of Facebook groups. There was a COVID-19 support group that was a local one. And I just put a message out saying, does anyone have any spare iPads or smartphones that they would be willing to donate, that we can send initially to Barnet and Chase Farm and the Royal Free. That's where my husband's based. And before I knew it, I was bombarded with offers of donations.
Wow.
People bringing things around to my house, friends of friends. And that is literally where it started. It sort of escalated quite quickly. Colleagues
also attracted the press attention, didn't it?
Yes. So a colleague of my husband was part of a network, and she knew someone who worked in a hotel chain, and they had coincidentally decided that they were going to upgrade all their systems and had about 900 iPads that they were looking to support hospitals, and very happy to donate them. So they, I was linked up with this hospital group, with this hotel group called Citizen M, and they very kindly gave us 100 iPads to start with. And then the press got hold of it. I'm not really sure how. I think there was a connection through one of the groups, and it was someone that used to write for the Jewish News and then was now working for the Times, and she put me in touch with a tech guy, and so there was an article in the Times, and a couple of weeks later, a lady called Sarah Ebner, who works for the Telegraph, also wrote a piece about it. And on the back of that, more donations came flying in. I was able to get back in touch with Citizen M to say, this is where they've gone. They've been amazingly received. But during that time, I was getting calls from Charing Cross Hospital, Hammersmith, the Nightingale, Cavell, which is a private hospital that had been taken over for use by NHS patients.
How are they finding you? How are they getting to you?
All through this original post, and it literally just went viral because people were sharing my posts. I had donations coming in from Holland, Ireland, everywhere. It was just crazy. I literally just got another Samsung tablet, came in the post this morning from the States. So people are just linking up, and they're sharing the information and then getting in contact. And I guess having, I had a few people who were rightly skeptical. Who am I? They've never heard of me before. How do they know that I'm not selling them on eBay? But actually that right up in the Times, and other people knowing me and justifying the cause, and the little letters on the Royal Free website and Barnet website saying thank you so much, made everyone realize actually this is a genuine cause.
Wow. Did you get feedback from any people who were using it at all? I don't know if that's possible.
So I had a really lovely message via a friend whose uncle or cousin was using one of the devices, and she gave my phone number to her cousin, who sent me a really lovely message saying my husband was using your device in hospital, and it turns out that your husband was treating him, and they put all the links together, and it was just really lovely. And actually they work in a hospice as well, so we're hoping to now be able to give them some more devices to help in the North London hospice. So after all of the hospital donations, I was then, I had a few left over, and I thought it would be really nice to go beyond the NHS, because NHS was getting loads of support. They were getting all the funding, they were getting You Donate, We Deliver, they were getting all the food, all the everything. And I have a friend who runs some care homes in Kent, and I spoke to him, and he was delighted to take some of the devices. I have a friend who works for Camp Simcha, so I spoke to her and said, would they be of any use? And this just happened to be around the time of the 2.6 challenge, when the London Marathon was cancelled. So Camp Simcha decided to do a challenge where people would do 2 minutes 60 or 26 star jumps and raise money that way. So my little bit was to give 26 tablets, iPads, laptops, mobile phones, whatever it was, to Camp Simcha. And then I was also able to give some to gift as well. And somehow along the way, it got a little bit more public, and I was contacted by the Lord Lieutenant, Her Majesty's Lord Lieutenant of Hertfordshire, and he was basically acting on behalf of 8 hospices in and around Hertfordshire and North London. And again, hospices have been very much forgotten in the grand scheme of things. And so, although I have no more devices until this one that arrived yesterday, I have been fundraising.
Yeah.
So we've now reached and beat the target. We've got just over £1,500 to go and buy some more devices to put towards the hospices, of being able to communicate, take them out, use them for apps, for physio, occupational speech therapy, entertain the children, entertain the adults, whatever it is that they need them for.
Absolutely. So incredible.
Just a tiny little thing. I can't believe how it's grown. It has been amazing. But yeah, and it's still going.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Really, I've seen the growth of that as well, and we will be putting on, I'll attach the link if people want to contribute, and I'll be also putting on Sarah's Instagram page, Corona Creativity, if people want to tap into that. Thank you. Claire, you've been waiting very patiently. Please share with us a bit about the history of where you're up to with the important work that you've been doing.
So I founded with my kind of partner in crime and woman called Andy Hugh, an organisation called Heads Up Kids. We started about 7 years ago And what we wanted to do was create a program for primary schools which ran in a similar way to kind of therapeutic groups, but was universal for the whole class. And the reason we wanted to do that was because we'd been running groups years and years ago for children who were experiencing social and emotional difficulties. And what we found was that those children would come out of school, they'd come to a lovely group, and they would build their confidence, they would build their self-esteem, and then they would return to school. And often, not all the time, but often things would kind of skip back to where they used to be. They kind of fall back to that old rhythms with their class and the difficulties they'd had, and those changes that those children had made were not sustained. And we felt that the reason those changes weren't sustained was because those children were kind of, the other children in the class were not part of the process. They hadn't gone on that journey. They hadn't kind of learnt the emotional language. They hadn't kind of seen kind of the difference that changing their behaviour might make and changing their thinking might make. And so everything for that individual child kind of just been held back by the fact that actually everybody else in the class wasn't really speaking the same language. So way back when we were running those groups, we had this idea that we wanted to do something. And then just near the end of my first maternity leave about 7 years ago, my friend Andy came back to me and said, do you still want to kind of go ahead with that idea? And I said, not really thinking anything would ever happen. I said, well, why don't we write a proposal? We put in a proposal to Norwood to say, kind of, could we have a go at running this kind of group in schools? And we were really surprised that they said yes. So we wrote this program, we kind of did it around our kitchen tables, put together all of our ideas about how we would run these groups in schools, very, very different to running a small kind of 6-person group outside school, how we would make it work in school. And the main thing that we felt was really important was that these groups should be run by the class teacher in the class. And that if you just kind of parachute somebody in to come and do this kind of work, that what happens is as soon as they've finished and they leave, all of that learning and all of that connection that happens within the class just kind of leaves with them. So part of what we did was to establish kind of the program with a training component, so that we would train the teachers and they would deliver it. So that's kind of the basis of how our program works. And we've been really, really lucky that we've just gradually grown, and we've had some great funding from the World Foundation, and we kind of got to this point of the year. We were halfway through, I guess, our 6th or 7th year, and we're working with about 20 Jewish schools. And then Corona happened, and we were kind of midway through the year working with all of these schools. We were about to kind of use the schools we were working with to submit evidence to the Early Intervention Foundation to kind of accredit our work, and it all had to stop. And so we couldn't go into schools, we couldn't train teachers, we couldn't do anything. Wow. But what we did have was kind of all of this knowledge and experience about how to run wellbeing with primary school children. And what we could see was going to happen was that all these children who were going to be away from school were going to have to at some point go back to school, having had a range of different experiences. Some of them hopefully really positive and lovely with their families, but many of them would have been really difficult experiences, being in stressful households, maybe finding it really difficult to reintegrate and kind of come out of that isolated existence and go back into school. So we decided
to interrupt you for a minute. I'm sure that's something that both Michelle and Sarah in their professions would be very aware of, things they'll see as both a speech and language therapist and a GP. But you go on, carry on, Claire.
Yeah, so we kind of felt like it would be really important for those schools to have something kind of waiting for them, ready to use when they came back. So we kind of pivoted and we set to work writing a back to school program. And at first we thought we'd write a couple of sessions, and then it sort of turned into a 10-session program. And as we kind of already had funding for this year, we decided that we couldn't charge the schools that we were already working with, and everything had to be done remotely anyway. So we Pages, the Partnership for Jewish Education in Schools, let us put it on their website as a downloadable resource that was free to all schools, and we've had an amazing uptake on it. So not only have the schools that we're already working with downloaded it, but we've kind of doubled the number of Jewish schools that we're working with, and we've had nearly 200 non-Jewish schools download the program as well. So that's kind of been through a lot of word of mouth. I've got really into Twitter, which I'd never touched before, but it's been quite and yeah, so that, I mean, obviously there's a need out there, and obviously there are other kind of materials and things coming out there, but we just felt it was really important for us to write something and to give teachers something that they as teachers would find easy to use in the classroom, that hopefully children will enjoy, and would help children with that transition back to school.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. I think that from what you've all said, we can see how everybody's looked for a way to adapt to the situation and find a way to sort of to help people, however it is, whether it's, you know, Sarah with people at home with their kids, Michelle, people stuck in the hospitals, and as you say, Claire, these kids who aren't going to school. It's been very challenging, and they will. I mean, I think about my own kids, you know, having to get back to school and back into that rhythm. So we could, also the other thing we can see is how these simple ideas can grow into something so supportive. Michelle, your efforts have meant so much to so many people. Being alone in hospital can be so isolating anyway, normally, but even more so when people aren't allowed to visit. And technology has made a huge difference. Sarah, as we said, your page is fun, and it's just what parents have needed. And I can see how helpful it's been. It's been to others who, you know, might not have a imagination, as I said, but have got some loo rolls or paint or marbles at home. And Claire, the ongoing after effects of this time, it's really unknown, and the work you're doing for the primary school children, it's really invaluable. Has anyone else got anything else they want to add or say?
I just wanted to say that my younger son, actually I think both my children access Heads Up at school, or were accessing it. I'm actually in a very fortunate position that my eldest son has gone back to school because he's in year 6, and my younger son has gone back as a key worker child. They're only there a couple of days a week, but I can really see the benefits that Heads Up had in terms of how their teachers relate to them, and how they have been, so their teachers in particular, I think were just amazing anyway, but I think they have really tuned into them as children throughout this whole thing, and it's been really, really instrumental. So yeah, keep up the good work.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting way to look at it that I've never thought about, that the teachers, their stability, the teacher's always there. As you say, it's not someone coming in and then going and they're gone. So if there's something they need to follow up, they know that their teacher's already made that connection. Yeah. It's a really incredible way to approach it.
Mm. And it makes such a big difference to have that shared language, that when you start those conversations, you know, emotional well-being doesn't exist in a bubble. It's part of every single thing that goes on. And so to have a lesson and separate it from playtime doesn't make any sense. You need to be able to have those children come in from their argument at playtime and use the same language that they have been using in the lesson beforehand to resolve the differences that they've got and to kind of move on from that. So I think that's such an important part of kind of how we work and what we're doing.
Yeah, fantastic.
As a GP and somebody that's gone through the different hospital rotations, working in hospices and hospitals as well, I can't explain, honestly, I felt the same as you, that being alone in those times where you're so poorly and possibly at the end of your life, to be able to have access like that is just invaluable, not only to the patient, but also to the relatives. Yeah. So that is just absolutely amazing what you've done, Michelle.
I think when my husband came home and said to me, a 92-year-old had spoken to their son or daughter, I can't remember now, or one of the devices that I donated, and that was like within a few days, and literally I just welled up. I was like, yeah. That is what it's about. That is just as simple as that made a difference to someone else's life, and it was just a donation. It was, you know, just a simple thing. People have got these devices lying around, you know, literally in a cupboard or in a box doing nothing. They're never going to use it. They're never going to give it to someone else because it's, I don't know, 4 years old or something, and they've got the latest new fandangled version. And suddenly, out of the woodwork, people were just giving, and it's actually amazing how heartwarming it is to see people coming together through this crisis.
Really amazing. I think you've all given something, you've all offered something to people of all different ages and stages, and I want to thank you all for your time, for joining in this evening, and just wish you all in everything that you do, that you all go from strength to strength. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for watching.